Hi there VC, it's Steve Whitty again. Time for another video. This is part 2 of my recent finds, Prog. Prog finds post lockdown. As I say, I'm trying to catch up on my recent post lockdown finds, show to everyone so I can sort of move forward with the channel a little bit. So I'm not going to give a long introduction. If you've seen part 1, you know what it's about. So without further ado, let's show the first album. Now, before I do that, you know how you define prog. I would define progressive music, prog, as something that pushes the boundaries a little bit to the norm, and I would include this artist in this. Better known as a producer, William Orbit. This is his Strange Cargo album, which was released in 1987. It was his second album. As I said, he became better known as a producer. And I think IRS, who he was signed to, were really keen on the artist. In fact, Miles Copeland has put a little note on there about it, and he was sort of like comparing this, saying he hadn't heard anything as good as this since Pink Floyd. It is an album of what it is. You know, you get sort of what you mean by William Orbit, sort of like almost trance, sort of dance type music, recorded in between studio space between 1984 and 1987. Yeah, this is not a bad album. I mean, obviously became more famous for producing Madonna, but yeah. Strawbs from the Witchwood. This is the band's 4th album, released in 1971. This copy here is a reissue. This is a band that is starting to hit off in the peak, and I believe, I'll get this back in. It features Rick Wakeman, and I think this might be the last album that featured Rick Wakeman. So you've got several tracks on here. This is leads on the folk, A Glimpse of Heaven, Witchwood, Trinity Days, Flight. The side one ends was probably the standout track, The Hangman and the Papist. It tells the story of a man whose job is the hangman, and he's preparing to hang the to the subject. He doesn't know who the person is until he's brought out to before him, and then he realises to his shock that he's going to be hanging his younger brother. Papist was a Catholic. For those that don't know, in the UK, particularly after the Reformation, it was illegal to practice Catholic services, and punishment was indeed death at that time. Tony Visconti produced this album. So side 2, you've got Sheep, Cannondale, The Shepherd's Song, In Amongst the Roses, I Carry On Beside You. This is a really good album. It might be the best album I've heard of the Strawbs. I haven't got that many albums by them, to be honest. Not sure if I want to delve into the late 70s, early 80s, but this is a really good album. Family, 1970, A Song for Me. This is their 3rd album. This is an album that's released on the Reprise label. This is a £2 find. You could tell that the album covers seen better days. Still, it's okay. You know, it's something to add to my family collection. At this time, Rick Gretsch had gone, and I think a few changes had happened. John Wild had joined. This is a really good album, actually. It's a band that's starting to get into the peak. You've got Roger Chapman and John Whitney, really into really getting into their swing. Wouldn't get any chart hits by them, but you can see from the band there. There you go. But really nice album to have hold of. Jack Bruce, and this is Harmony Row, released in 1971. His third solo album. This is a mixture of all things. There's elements of prog, there are elements of jazz in here. Features obviously Pete Brown as his writing partner. There you go. It's again a wonderful album. You've got Chris Spedding on guitar here. Jack Bruce produced it himself. The photo, the album cover, is taken in Glasgow, where Jack Bruce came from. I think it might be Govan, the Govan area. You can see like old tenements. This is around the time where the old two up, two downs, old poor housing that used to blight a lot of cities in the UK was starting to get ripped down and replaced by flats, maisonettes. Sort of turned it into a bit of a concrete jungle. And I think that obviously the kids must have just been playing around when he was looking at doing the photo, and they just came in different times. I'm not sure you'd be allowed to do that now. This I took a punt on. This is Wooly Wolstenholme, and it's his debut solo album. How am I going to pronounce this? It's not Maestro, it's Mestoso. That's how I'm going to pronounce it. Correct me if I'm wrong. He had just left Barclay James Harvest. He was the keyboardist. As I said, this is his first solo album. Featuring Kim Turner and Steve Broomhead on there. Released in 1980. And in a way, he was going to fall a little bit out of time. I think that he was released on Polydor. Maybe that Polydor felt a little sense of duty to him. Sadly, Wooly Wolstenholme had suffered with mental health, and he ended up committing suicide. But this album's not bad. I mean, he toured with Judy Zook on the back of this album, but he sort of disappeared, and then joined the reformations of various versions of Barclay James Harvest afterwards. Utopia, Todd Rundgren's band. This is Oops, Wrong Planet from 1977, the third studio album. And this is where the band start to move away from their more prog leanings. This is more a move towards a more straight-ahead rock album. And there's some tracks that are prog, some, as I say, just rock. That is the band at the time. I've got a couple of albums now. If you compare it to Ra is a prog album. This isn't. It, as I say, it just moved away. I think maybe they were looking for something more commercial. Maybe they were looking for a hit. Nothing on there that smacks of hit when I listen to it. But yeah, really not bad album. Then sticking with Utopia, found this as well, a Swing to the Right. This was released in 1982. The title track, which is the opening track on the album, is probably the most prog you'll get off the album. And yeah, I'm not sure how many more albums they did after this. But you see, Swing to the Right, this is a very political album. It's sort of having a pop of what was going on in America. Reagan had just taken over, and the sort of the rise of the right, the Christian right. And I think this album represents a bit of a pop. And the photo here is they've mocked their album onto photo when people were burning the Beatle records after John Lennon's alleged statement about them being bigger than Jesus. When you think about it, Ronald Reagan seems tame now to what's been going on recently, but that's only an observation, not an opinion. But hey, I mean, it's not a bad album, but it's more of a rock album than I would say a prog album. More quick slurps. Pete in the shop has been going on to me about this album for ages. This is Home, The Alchemist. This is their third and their final album released on CBS. Home were one of these bands that seem to have their records critically lauded, but never sold, and it just never worked for them. It's a really good album. Some great playing on this, and some great songs on here as well. Probably the most famous member is Cliff Williams, who eventually ended up becoming bass player with AC/DC. And he's probably done more on this album than he ever did in a 40-year career with AC/DC. I think he even gets a couple of songwriting credits on this album, more than he ever did with AC/DC. So, yeah, it really is a good album. It's worth seeking out. It's not that expensive an album, but it's lovely. And this is in lovely condition. This is. Pete played it to me in the shop, and I thought, it's coming home with me. Classic sort of prog, I suppose, krautrock rock album. This is Can's Tego Mago. This is a reissue. I think it might have been 2017 reissue. Double album. This was the first album to feature Damo Suzuki. Band had recorded their first album with Michael Mooney. They come to record this. They discovered Damo Suzuki as a busker in Munich, and this album is wonderfully all over the place. It just goes in different directions, and you can see why, listening to it, why it's so influential in prog circles. So I think it's absolutely wonderful. It's well worth checking out. If you've not heard it, stream it, give it a listen. I'd streamed it a couple of times, so I knew what was going. If you go into it blind, you might end up being a little disappointed. And final album, I'm going to show something really up to date. This is Public Service Broadcasting's latest album, Bright Magic. I would say Public Service Broadcasting are my current favourite band. I think they're very clever. I think I do love what they do, how they tell a story through their album without actually singing. Having said that, when I posted this album on Instagram, I did get some messages saying, I'm having difficulty, I'm not liking this album. And to be honest, the storyline on this album is not as obvious as I say the previous albums. Basically, this is the story of the album stems from when the leader, and if I've got to get his name right, J. Wilgoose Esquire, spent time living in Berlin, and he was sort of like he wanted to get away. Berlin, if you've never been, it's a wonderful city. It's really the last sort of place where you can be bohemian in a big city. I mean, there are changes going on where the rents are going up, whatever. And it's sort of like, it's not even seen like it's sort of looked down upon by the rest of Germany. It's just that mixture of the arts, everything there. I was there 2007, and you still see bits of the Berlin Wall, and it just had that wonderful vibe. You could tell the difference between the West and the East at that point. Whether you can now, I don't know. But so let's go back to the album. The storyline isn't as obvious on this. I think you've got to give this a couple of listens to really appreciate it. I think I've listened to it a couple of times. The second listen, liked it more than the first listen. yeah, you've really got to go it. But the whole German influence, even on the cover there, it's almost like a, yeah, really is good. It's a good album. Maybe not up there with the previous albums, but it is a good album. So there you go, VC. That is all my prog done over the last 2 videos. So I hope you liked what I've shown. If you're new to the channel and you like what you see, thumbs up, thumbs down. Subscribe. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. I always get these in the wrong order. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Love the interaction. Feel free to leave a comment. I'll always get back to you. I've had some new subscribers, which I'm really grateful for, because I've been a little bit inactive recently. It's good to see people coming back to the VC and posting videos, and it sort of inspired me to come back as well. So whatever you get up to, VC, make sure you have a good and look after yourselves, keep spinning, but more importantly, keep on smiling. Till next time.